Amy Rose started out as Sonic's biggest fangirl, loud, flawed, and full of personality, but now she's perfect. The question is, did she lose what made her interesting? Let's talk about it. From the moment we meet Amy Rose in the game Sonic CD, we know nothing about her except for the fact that she just loves Sonic. I mean, I love Sonic too, I got a whole YouTube channel about him, but dang, she really loves Sonic. The only reason she met Sonic in the first place is because she was using these magical cards that would eventually lead her to him. And because of this encounter, Amy is the second main character after Dr. Eggman to meet Sonic in the whole series, meaning that Amy knew Sonic before Tails and Knuckles ever did. Needless to say, Amy Rose has been around since basically the early days of Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, the only reason why Amy Rose was created in the first place is because Sega wanted to have their own Mickey and Minnie situation. But the only reason why we didn't get that Mickey and Minnie situation is because Sega realized that it'd be kind of weird to have Sonic be in a committed relationship when he's supposed to be this free spirit who does whatever he wants whenever he wants. You can't really do that in a relationship. Having said that, I don't think it's an unfair statement to make that the entire personality of Amy Rose in the beginning anyway was founded on the fact that she loved Sonic. Yes, she played around with the mystical tarot cards, but eventually they would just totally get rid of that aspect of her character and just make it strictly all about Sonic, and then she would just become obsessed with Sonic. I vividly remember the early 2000s when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog. Much of Amy Rose's character was literally just what's Sonic doing and where he is. I don't know if you guys remember a little show called Sonic X, but that's all Amy was in that show.
Sonic had a date with me and he never showed up!
Don't get me wrong, I think this is hilarious, but at the end of the day, I don't think it really does her character much justice because, again, it goes back to the point that there really isn't any substance here. Amy Rose got to a point where she felt like less of a character and more of a gag. Stepping away from alternative media, if we look strictly at games here for a second, Sonic Heroes I think is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. In the opening cutscene for Team Rose, we figure out why each member is going on this adventure. For Big, he lost Froggy, again. For Cream, she lost Chocolate Chow, and for Amy, she just wants to know where Sonic is. The opening line in this cutscene is,
I wonder where Sonic is.
Amy is so failing the Bechdel test. By the way, is talking about the Bechdel test failing the Bechdel test? Let me know in the comment section down below. Anyway, Sega would recognize this issue and they would do something about it, totally eliminating Amy's obsessive personality and just making her a girl. For a good while there, I would argue that Amy was probably the most boring character in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise because you stripped away the one thing that made her distinct and the one thing that she was founded upon. Like I said earlier, Amy was only created because they wanted a love interest for Sonic. However, that love interest would turn into obsession and that would be all her character is about. And when you strip away that one little thing that she's about, you're left with nothing. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call an overcorrection. And I think the most frustrating thing about this is that Amy was really well written in games like Sonic Unleashed. She still is heavily infatuated with Sonic, but it's no longer blind infatuation, which we see in Sonic CD, and even I'd argue in games like Sonic Heroes. In the game Sonic Unleashed, Amy and Professor Pickle share a scene together where Amy is talking about how she believes in Sonic. This level of belief was also shown in the game Sonic 06 when she protects Sonic from Silver. It's these moments where I feel like Amy really shines as a character, her belief in others, especially Sonic. It's also in these moments where you can actually make Amy's love for Sonic feel serious and not just a gag. Having said that, I'm of the belief that you can definitely have moments where Amy is serious about her love for Sonic like the scenes I just described, but also moments where it is an actual gag. But I think when you lean too hard in one direction, especially the gag one, it doesn't really land as well. Again, it might be funny, it definitely is funny, but it doesn't make Amy feel like an actual character. But games like Sonic Unleashed and 06 all took place before we got the new writers in games like Sonic Lost World. This admittedly was the boring era of Amy Rose that I talked about earlier, and there really isn't too much to be said here because she doesn't really do anything. So to fight that narrative of Amy being a boring character, Amy was once again, in my opinion, overcorrected. Now, if you remember correctly, the only reason why Amy met Sonic in the first place is because the magic tarot cards told her where to be. And it would be after this moment that they would never really get brought up again when it comes to Amy. She would just become the obsessive Sonic fangirl. And upon Sonic CD's release, there were really only two things that stood out about Amy, the tarot cards and her obsessive love for Sonic. When the 2000s era got rid of the tarot cards and had her focus on the obsession with Sonic, I would argue that this era is just doing the opposite, whereas instead of focusing on the obsessive love with Sonic, it's focusing on the tarot cards. Let's take a look at Sonic Frontiers. Now, I will talk about other aspects of this game because there is quite a bit of Amy content here and her character is something here, but let's talk about what they did in the DLC Final Horizons. In Final Horizons, you get to play as 3 characters, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. I guess Sonic 2 if you want to count that, so 4. Tails gets to use his Cyclone and throw wrenches. Knuckles does his, just killing it. I mean, he's a boss. But Amy uses her Pico Pico hammer and throws tarot cards. When did Amy Rose turn into the Gambit from the X-Men? It probably might be cool if, that wasn't like 90% of her moveset. She really doesn't even use the Pico Pico hammer that much. It's just mostly the cards. And it's so weird because the Pico Pico hammer translates so well to a lot of what she does, but instead they just use the cards. It just felt like a really cheeky way to remind us that, hey, Amy does this and can still do it. Like, we don't need that. It's games like Sonic Frontiers where I just feel like Amy doesn't really have any noteworthy character traits. And I think when it comes to her moveset, it just feels like they tried to make her feel different because of that sheer fact. There isn't anything noteworthy about Amy anymore, so give her the tarot cards to make her feel different. But on to Amy's characterization in Frontiers, I don't think it's bad, but I do think there's really one issue with it. You see, Tails and Knuckles both have these scenes where it feels like an actual issue for their characters and it gets wrapped up neatly and tied with a nice little bow. Tails, for example, comes to the conclusion that he needs to go at it alone for a while and not always work behind Sonic. This conclusion is drawn after having a moment of reflection on games like Sonic Forces where he just came up short. Knuckles, on the other hand, is reminded that he's not alone even though he's the last Echidna, and also Sonic kind of inspires him to not be so chained to the Master Emerald and go free. However, Amy's conclusion falls flat, especially when compared to the other two. When you end your time on Kronos Island, Amy comes to the conclusion that she needs to share her love with the world because she was inspired by the ancients. Sharing your love with the world is so incredibly vague, and I don't think it helps for this character because we don't really know what she's supposed to be yet. Sonic Frontiers is a game that did a fantastic job of fixing a lot of the issues I have with the characters for the past, I don't even know how many years. But for Amy, it just feels as though they were still unclear of what to do, so they left it intentionally vague because they're trying to figure it out. 2 years ago, I made videos talking about what's next for each of the characters in Sonic Frontiers. I made one for Knuckles, Amy, and Tails. And Amy has the most views because I'm assuming that you all were just as confused about it as I was. There's a level of clarity and definitiveness in Tails and Knuckles stories just because it was straightforward. Amy, on the other hand, is left vague because that's a bit difficult to figure out right now. But you know what? I gotta say, I completely understand. Out of these 3, I would argue that Amy is the most difficult to write for. When it comes to characters like Tails and Knuckles, they both had a foundational reason for why they're in the story. Tails, for example, is supposed to be the best friend for Sonic, and he's supposed to be this smart guy doing things that Sonic can't do. He fills in where Sonic can't. And when it comes to Knuckles, he began as the rival character, someone who antagonized Sonic who became a friend over time. And also, he's got a purpose. He's supposed to be the guardian of the Master Emerald. But when it comes to Amy, a character who has changed so much through the years because initially, she just wasn't the love interest that they thought she was going to be. There was no Mickey and Minnie situation. All you had was a crazed, obsessed fangirl. They wanted to get out of that, but how do you change the very foundation that the character is built on without changing the entire character? Like I said, it's been done right many times before, but lately, they just can't seem to get it right. But there is one exception. The murder of Sonic the Hedgehog nails the characterization for every single Sonic character, and that includes Amy Rose. And it's not like Amy had like 3 minutes of screen time in this game. Throughout the entire game, you make this character, and you actually work alongside Amy and Tails, so there is significant time with Amy in this game. For years, Amy was branded as this strong and capable character with no real substance to her, but this game makes her feel not only strong and capable, but also just makes her feel like an actual character. I think a lot of people always struggle with the idea that you can either be this girly girl character or really strong and dependable, but I think that Amy Rose in this game is a really great medium. I've seen quite a few people worried that the Sonic Movie 4 will make Amy into this really just Mary Sue kind of character, this perfect, flawless character that I mentioned in the title of the video, but I don't think that that fear is truly justified when you look at games like this, where they show that Amy can be both, and I think this is where you find life in Amy Rose. Now, I do believe that this game does have the advantage of being a visual novel so that it can dive into more of the characterizations and accurate character portrayals, but I don't think that that excuses the games like Sonic Frontiers or any other Sonic game that follows after for not really capturing the essence of what Amy Rose is supposed to be. To be totally honest with you, I think that this game should be used as a blueprint for what to do with all of the characters' personalities going forward. And also, we're going to need some more Sonic visual novels because this game was just a gem. But what do you guys think? What is going on with Amy Rose? Do you think she's been fixed? Is there still more room to improve? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. And also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe on this video if you enjoyed it. I hope you did because you watched this far. But anyway, this is your boy SONICSTA signing out. Have a super blessed day, y'all.
Why are you playing that trash?